Cars is one of my all-time favorite Pixar movies, and watching it in different languages has been a real pleasure. In fact, the Cars franchise has some absolutely crazy dubs. It features some of the most fascinating and surprising adaptations I've ever encountered. Today's video will cover Italian, French, German, Ukrainian, Persian, Russian, Bulgarian, Kazakh, and Spanish dubs. Without further ado, let's begin. One of the most significant changes across the dubs involves Mater. First and foremost, it's about his name. Almost every version completely reinvents it. For example, in the French dub, he's called Martin. You know, like in Aston Martin.
Je m'appelle Martin. Martin? Oui, comme Aston Martin, mais sans Aston.
But perhaps the most interesting adaptation comes from the Persian dub. Mater is called Motor here, which sounds very similar to the Persian word for killer. And Mater actually talks about it in this version.
Mater?
Wow, that's pretty intense, even for a movie like Cars that has its fair share of adult jokes. What do you guys think of this adaptation? Now, in the Italian version, he's called Carl, and in the Bulgarian dub, he's called Matthew.
Mi chiamo Carla Trezzi. Casam se macho.
There are a lot of cool adaptations of his name, but we'll talk about the rest of them at the end of the video. But for now, let's talk about one of the most interesting dubs of Cars, the Ukrainian dub. Throughout the entire Cars franchise, the Ukrainian version consistently replaced American or neutral references with Ukrainian ones. For example, in this scene, Mater mentions Kyiv. That's the capital of Ukraine, by the way.
I bet even the roads on the moon ain't this smooth.
It's super unexpected, especially since this is the official dub shown all over Ukraine. Now, at the end of the movie, the Ukrainian dub added a line about Soviet spaceman Yuri Gagarin.
I'm happy in the tornado in the trailer park.
Also, various American names were replaced with Ukrainian ones. Take a look.
That's Frank. You know, I once knew this girl, Doreen.
Interestingly, the second movie in the franchise had even more of these changes, and if you wanna see a video about it, like and comment. By the way, the Persian dub also replaced Doreen's name with this Persian name, and it can be translated as flower. You probably remember this adult joke about Sally.
Just kidding. She just likes me for my body.
It's quite interesting how it's translated into different versions. For example, they took it a step further in the Ukrainian dub. While in the original, it seems like Mater said the line without any dirty thoughts, in the Ukrainian dub, it's probably kinda the opposite. Mater uses a wordplay. First, he uses words that clearly hint at his physical intimacy with Sally, but then he quickly corrects himself and explains that he meant he told Sally, not made love to her. It's hard to translate, but I think you get the point.
Я шуткую. Я тільки раз її тягав, в смислі буксирував.
By the way, in the Persian dub, this joke was completely changed into a harmless one. Here, Mater calls Sally his wife and says she's in love with his teeth. That's some interesting censorship. In Bulgaria and Kazakhstan, this joke was also censored and made harmless. Let's talk about the German dub. Germans did something really strange in their version. When McQueen loses Mag, he chases after a truck. In all versions, this truck is male, and he really looks like a dude. But in the German version, they made him a woman and named him Brusella. But why?
Mac? I ain't no Mac, I'm a Peterbilt for dang sake.
Mac? Was soll denn der Blödsinn? Ich heiß Priscilla und das ist gut so.
At the beginning of the movie, we see the commentators Daryl Cartrip and Bob Cutlass. In the German version, they're replaced by real people. Chris Dinner, a German racer, and Heiko Wasser, a German sports journalist.
I'm Bob Cutlass, here with my good friend Daryl Cartrip.
Ich bin Heiko Water und neben mir steht mein guter Freund Chris Dinner.
The next scene also turned out to be pretty strange. First, check it out in the original.
It's a conspiracy, man! The oil company's got a grip on the government!
In the Persian dub, instead of the government, they talk about the devil. Wow, that's unexpected. But to be honest, I'm not 100% sure about this translation. Persian speakers, is this translation correct? By the way, in the Ukrainian dub, they added a line about globalists. Overall, the Russian and Ukrainian versions often added Cars jokes that weren't in the original. For example, here.
I don't believe what I'm watching, Bob!
Also, these dubs added many jokes with Italian words.
Madonna mia, ужас.
I will lose everything.
Я болельщик всю мою Дольче Вита, всю мою жизнь.
I have followed the racing my entire life, my whole life.
In the Bulgarian version, there is one very suspicious translation. You probably remember McQueen's sponsor Rusty's. Interestingly, in the Bulgarian dub, this sponsor is called Rjdoyat, which happens to be the name of a real rust removal product sold in Bulgaria.
Queen here, and I use Rusty's.
I wonder if their sales went up after Cars came out. Also, in the Bulgarian version, McQueen calls Sally an amazing chick or babe.
Holy Portia. Super Matska.
In some versions, the movie had long titles. For example, its full title in France is Cars 4 Wheels. In Italy, it's Cars Roaring Engines. And in Mexico and Argentina, it's Cars An Adventure on Wheels. Of course, most likely people in these countries simply call the movie Cars. Now, in the middle of the movie in the original, there is this whole joke about gas.
What do you have at your store?
I have gas. Lots of gas.
The French version replaces the gas with P.
Qu'est-ce que tu vends dans ton café?
Du carburant et du meilleur.
De la bibi.
And actually, in the world of Cars, gas is essentially P, so it's kinda a witty joke. In the Russian version, it's all very strange. Flo just says antifreeze and Mater starts laughing. Honestly, I don't see the joke here at all. It's like he's laughing for no reason.
А что у тебя в заправочной?
Антифриз. Тормозуха.
In one scene, Mater tries to tease McQueen. In the American version, he just calls McQueen baby and clucks like a chicken. But in the Ukrainian version, he calls him a woman, but uses a little rude word which translates to broad or chick, and then starts saying that McQueen peed himself.
Baby.
I'm not a baby. Fine, stop.
Баба. Я не баба. Описався.
Now, the Czech dub added a joke about butts. It turned out pretty funny though.
Von Dutch style, huh?
Now let's get back to Mater. In the Spanish and Mexican versions, he was called Mate, and in the scene explaining his name, they associated it with tomato.
Mi nombre es Mate.
Mate?
Sí, como tomate, pero sin el to.
In the German version, he was simply called Hook, which is a pretty fitting name. The Ukrainian dub did something interesting. They called him Sirnik, a wordplay to Tom Mater. But it also means an Eastern European dessert made with cottage cheese. I've eaten it many times. My grandma used to make it for me. It's a tasty treat actually. In the Polish version, Mater was called like this. It translates roughly to scrap metal. Honestly, it was exciting to analyze all these versions. I think the most interesting ones are Ukrainian, Persian, French, and Russian. Also, it'd be great to know how they translated Mater's name into the language you know. Anyway, if you wanna see a similar video about Cars 2, like and comment. See ya!